I'm Elisa Mortensen, and this is UndoRedo. Let's take a look at all the things that happen in life that we would like to undo and have a chance to redo. Hello to whoever's listening. It's fall right now, and it's been so lovely in Utah. There are a lot of long, warm days and cold nights up until yesterday when the storms came through. But there are leaves and colors galore. I came up with my own lengthened version of an inspired quote that I heard, and I love it. Here it is. Fall shows us how beautiful it can be to let go, to take our time to build from the inside, and to start new again, giving to the world, doing our best with what we have been given and where we are planted. That's kind of long, but isn't that interesting? The seasons are expected in nature. So what if we could realize our seasons and so graciously let go, calmly withdraw when it's time, do some self-care within, and then come forth more beautifully after when we're renewed with assurance that this is just the process. This is just a growth cycle. No drama about any of it. It's just the way we grow. If we could truly see this our way, our lives would have so much more peace, that peace that we all desire. But this episode is on Dr. Becky's Good Inside book. I wanted to give it a review in an episode because there were so many good takeaways from it. She truly believes that we are all good inside. One of her opening statements is that assuming goodness enables us to be sturdy leaders in our family. When you believe in their goodness, that they are without a doubt good inside, they live up to their ability and become capable and gain resilience. While we are providing the space and a safe container for them to explore and express until they become that. Isn't that so cool? And the way I thought about doing this is when I got to the end of kind of outlining this podcast episode, I loved the end of the book so much, I put it first. So the conclusion, here it is. I'm going to begin with the conclusion and then go on through the book. It's just so good. And I wondered this will just be a longer episode. I was hoping people could make it through. So the conclusion was that our presence when they are having a hard time is more powerful than anything else you could say or do. We have to show our kids that they aren't too much for us, that there's nothing they can do or say that makes us abandon them. Right? They're not too much for us to handle. Them feeling safety covers their whole range of emotions and allows all of it. Boundary pushing that they have, the words that they say, how rude or awful they get, right? When we stick around, it says to them that you are good, you are lovable, and you're having a difficult moment. So just by us being there, you don't have to say anything, and just looking at them lovingly, this hits what they crave inside most. They also have a hard time accepting it. Kids that feel really big have a hard time accepting that you still love them because they're mad at themselves inside. But you can just say, I love you, and it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. I love you. And while we are in our own heads, we remind ourselves over and over, nothing is wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with my child. I can cope with this. I can be here for them. She restates how two things are true at all times at the end of the book, and she brings it up several times. You can act impatient, controlling, demanding, aggressive, but that's not who you are. And your past approach to raising your kid may have caused a cycle of pain and guilt for you right now. But the key to change is tolerating that shame and guilt you feel as part of the change process. Make friends with the shame and the guilt. They are not the enemy to change. They need to be there to change. They're a good signal. They're the sign that you're making progress. She also says, you are still a good person when you are having a hard time. You yell, you threaten, you punish, and you break promises. And even then, you are still good inside. And that is most important to see. As soon as we as parents feel bad inside, we can't create that change. Changing from self blame and things that we're not proud of has never worked for anyone, maybe short term. But that's why change is so hard. We've all tried it repeatedly and failed. As soon as we feel bad about ourselves, we lose the power to change. All of our energy wants to go to escape the bad feeling that we have. So she really affirms that we have to feel good inside to change and try new things. She begs us to hold two truths. One is you are not how you've acted previously, and that self-reflection and an honest look shifts us into accountability and how important that is. And the second one is you can do differently moving forward. And tell yourself, I can and I want to do better now. Believing that you are good inside may seem a little bit radical. Maybe it's a little too radical, like, but I'm not good inside. I have all these evidences that I'm not, but it feels hard to get to believing you're good inside because it is hard. She begins her whole book by describing how our parents led with judgment and how they saw behavior as who we were. She came up with an acronym called MGI, Most Generous Interpretation. And she says that this is always the best first response. So if you can hold in your mind the most generous interpretation of what your child is doing, it keeps our own emotions regulated, and that we're meant to start there first. So picture some crazy moment going on in your household. It's always the best first response to have, what is the most generous interpretation of this fit or of this chaos, of this crisis? She says focusing on how a child's behavior negatively impacts us sets the stage for codependence, not regulation, and it cuts us off from having any empathy. So if we run straight to, they're doing this to me on purpose, or why do they disrespect me, then that's not regulating anyone and it's not allowing us to have empathy. The MGI, the most generous interpretation, sounds more like, looks like she's really sad, maybe mad, frustrated, and those feelings are so big inside her body that it's coming out in the form of big hurtful words and big hurtful actions. I know that's a lot of like robot talk, but she says that the MGI sounds more like that. So we must orient them to their inward experience. And in order for us to see that, we have to see their inward experience instead of what they're doing outside. Their inward experience is one of sadness. We want to bring them to see that so they have a foundation of healthy awareness and coping in their future. True self-confidence is built by showing and reminding our kids that they are good inside even when they act poorly on the outside. She also addresses how we must see our own good inside when we have behaved poorly outside. Dr. Becky urges us to be two things at once in some of her early chapters. She said we can be both fun and firm. We can say no and be kind about it. We can have understanding be our goal instead of convincing lectures for them to change what they're doing outside of themselves. She calls it something, she says 1 point is true mode, where we start making 1 point the right point, our point, meaning their point's wrong, leaving them feeling unseen and unheard. She says to pay attention to whether you are in one thing is true mode, because in it, we're not accepting of any other way being true. No other one's perspective matters but our own, and to watch out for that. She says that when we're out to listen for more understanding, we are the ones that have better overall happiness than if we are trying to be right. Which, in my opinion, this must seem counterintuitive because the top complaints I get while coaching parents are that their kids won't listen. So that just seems counterintuitive, that they need to listen to me. I know best, right? So that's going to be a hard one to get out of one thing is true mode. So watch out for that. She emphasizes you can both be a good parent and yell too much, and that our behaviors do not become us. It's something we pass through. Both realities are true. You do yell a lot and you are a good parent. The two things are true belief can help you make firm decisions and allow them to have their big disapproving fits and feelings and permit you to be more lighthearted in your responsive. You could add playfulness around their learning and to remind yourself often that learning is hard for them. They don't think like you think. Like, say you're 30, 40, 50 years old, they don't think like you think when they're 8, 10, right? They lean on you. So remind them, because you're their parent, it's your job to keep them safe. It's your decision to make, and that they can be upset about it as they want and say, I'm here for you and I love you. Don't send them away when they're misbehaving. We can see their perspective. We can all have the negative emotions about the struggle, and we can all keep our valid reasons for having them. You can tell them, you're allowed to be mad. I get it. I'm not going to allow you to hurt anyone or to do the thing I just told you not to do. So what can we do here? Invite them to collaborate. Two things are always true ends every power struggle. Now, I thought that was pretty bold for Dr. Becky to say. Two things being true ends every power struggle. She says to tell them things like, what can we come up with that both of us can agree on? And if it's still too intense, you take deep breaths and a short pause, but stay present. Next, she tells us how important it is to view behavior as a whole. Like, her advice is to see it as a window to what information is going on inside them and inside us. But we can use this behavior window analogy to look through the crazy behavior into what dysregulation is found inside and where it's coming from. When things slip out of control, remember, two things are true. I'm a bad parent is just one thing is true. Two things true sounds more like I am a good parent, but I'm having a hard time. So when we get into be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it wrong, that's just one thing is true. Two things are true is you are a good parent and you're going through a hard time right now. Dr. Becky informs the reader that parents' most important job is to keep them safe, build resilience, and teach them to tolerate all their thoughts and their emotions. She says to remember that their job is to explore, which means pushing boundaries, right? Express, which means there's going to be a lot of loud expression, and learn, which is so frustrating. That means pushing against your boundaries and being uncooperative in order to see if you stay solid and firm. It means they get to be as loud and as mean as they want in order to see if you stick around. And they get to be frustrated with learning and say that they can't do things in order to see if you believe in them enough. And at the end of the day, did you prove to them that you are a safe space and that you believe in them so big? It also means that they get to express themselves in all these big ways, acting out in anger in all the many ways, just to see if you stay near and support them. And lastly, it means they will learn most by absorbing what you do and how you respond to life happening around you. I just think this book is so cool. Another important thing she points out is that they learn what you reflect back to them. They watch for whether or not you show them they are valuable, worth listening to, and sticking around for, and that you believe they have good in them. What they see and feel is valid and true inside. So try to work with them, not against them. Stopping them from dangerous action, in spite of their big fits, helps them feel loved, lovable, and good, worth the firm standing, worth your standing up for them. So stick it out and learn how to cope and tolerate with what comes up inside for you. She expresses the importance of how their early years matter, but repair matters more. She talks a lot about how in those early years, it's just vital that you do certain things. But their bodies don't lie, and the shame and the love are both stored inside. The safety and the feeling of danger are both stored inside all those years. And yes, we as parents impact the way they feel, which feelings are manageable, permissible, and dismissible. This sets the stage for their life. But yeah, we mess things up, but take a deep breath and celebrate the power of repair. What they can expect when they are having a difficult moment, what they are wired to maximize is attachment. So it's much deeper than thinking that they just need your attention. They're acting out right now to get my attention, and I won't reward bad behavior with my intention. It's outdated parenting to be thinking that way. Knowing what we know now about the brain and behavior, it's really important that we shift to something more accurate. If you feel guilt or shame as a parent, dive into yourself. The most important place you can be is inside your own stories and your own limits and getting some inner care, which is what I do. My coaching focuses on navigating us as the parents and the caregivers and the leaders through all of these areas of ourselves. Because what disturbs us becomes the limits to what we're capable of helping other people with. Dr. Becky comforts us by saying how protection and building them is never too late. Even when your child is now an adult with kids of their own and you wish you would have parented the whole time differently, that we can all learn repair and we can all change our strategies and manage our own guilt around the mistakes we make. She says to acknowledge that you are doing so much and you've always tried so hard. You are both learning and unlearning all the time. Rewiring us, rewiring them, that's the answer. An undo redo is what I call it in my coaching space. When we change, they change in response. It's not accomplished by changing their environment, put them in military school. That's not it. We go first. We have new growth and we try new things. They feel it, they see it, and they feel secure doing the same. They take our lead. It feels bad when we pick out their worst and not their best. And both things are true, right? You choose your target. Do you want to pick out their worst or their best? Which one you pick, you'll put all your energy into, and that one wins. Her next point is how resilience is greater than happiness. Resilience is a skill we can cultivate inside them when we stick it out and we stay in control. It feels better than avoiding the problems, being upset, blaming, having resentment, and then having to get back to being happy as fast as we can because we missed managing ourselves while we were in the pain. Well, let's just forget it. Let's just move on. Let's just skip to just being happy. She warns us against emphasizing happiness and pointing out all the time why they should be happy and they should be grateful because it makes it life's goal. What they pick on is happiness is the place to arrive at, ignore and run from all other things. And things like discomfort is bad and wrong. I need to immediately ease myself and I must get to a better feeling right now because I can't tolerate this. Which sends them into a future full of anxiousness if it's not happy all the time. It creates an attachment for them to happiness that doesn't allow all emotions to surface and doesn't allow them to continue to experience all that life has to offer. The very idea that discomfort is bad and us alluding to that reinforces fear and makes us run away from the bad times. It will add extra pain to those experiences for them and for us. When we're working with the uncomfortable feelings and not against them, it sounds a little more like, okay, downtimes and disagreements happen. It's not bad or wrong. I'm learning to tolerate because my parents tolerated it in me. They can have kind of a calm reassurance because they can learn to tolerate it. You were the example of tolerating it in them. I think that's so important. She warned against how most of us have well-meaning but harmful intentions to protect them from having the bad feelings. Like we want to jump in and save them all the time. But that it leaves them alone in it. Like you put a stop to their outburst and made them move on. Like, what is your problem anyway? Why do you have to be so dramatic? And they feel as though it just got scarier. Well, what I'm feeling inside is traumatic, so maybe I don't trust myself. They're left alone with that intense emotion and no skills on how to deal with it properly. They're just asked to shut it off. We can prepare them with saying it's okay to be upset and go ahead and let it out. I'm right here. She wants the reader of her book to realize in this chapter that no parent has ever successfully got all the uncomfortable feelings out of their kids by making them shut them off and convincing them that they shouldn't be feeling them. It doesn't make them leave. It just makes them better at shutting that inner part of themselves that needs attention off. The focus on stopping the unhappiness to appear happy brings so much more discomfort and leaves them feeling like something's very wrong inside them and that their inner cues are not to be trusted. She says, let's reframe the dreams we've made up for them, the ones of their happiness. Let's trade it out with being able to cope. Them being happy is not the goal here. Them being able to manage and tolerate all that comes along in life is the goal here. Because they will know two things are true at all times. We are both trying and good inside and a mess sometimes. She points out how to not make the focus on behavior at all. They know not to throw things. They know not to hit. They know not to call names. We also know not to treat our kids the way we're treating them. So instead of addressing behavior, we look closer at the explosion that's happening outside as a window to what they're first feeling inside. So we get curious about it. Something big must be happening on the inside. What is it? Address that above all else. Unless outside harm is being done, then make it a safe space first, and address what's going on the inside. The reason for lashing out and the thoughts behind the action are what we need to address. So what thoughts could have motivated that action? Remember the window approach, not the behavior approach. When change takes hold in this way, it can be longer lasting, more meaningful, and it can carry into all the areas of their life. When we understand what's happening underneath, you can see that they feel unsafe at the moment. They can feel unheard and uncared for, or that they even believe that they are bad. Then they behave poorly. Find time later when things are neutral to revisit and talk about what was going on in their minds and what they felt in their emotions. Find other ways for you to both be open and honest. Increase the communication and the connection so they open up to you instead of shutting down like you've asked them to do. We're all trying to avoid the shame and guilt, but addressing it and acknowledging it is what gets us to change. She nudges us strongly to focus efforts on reducing the shame and increasing the connection, which is what I have a passion for in my coaching practice as well. And I loved her language around it and her adding all her years of expertise to this book. She says, no punishments or scolding because it increases threat and it takes them to feeling unsafe again inside. But what when they shut down because of shame and guilt? They feel like they're bad and wrong because that's the cycle we're in. And then we increase in our anger. We disconnect from them because we can't regulate, and then we send them away so we don't have to deal with it. Go deal with it on your own. Well, no one learns or grows in these situations. Instead, what we do is take in those moments with curiosity. Why would they shut down? They must be feeling something horrible and shameful inside. There are some signs of shutting down, things like refusal to apologize, indifference, which just seems like they don't care, annoyance, like you can just tell they're annoyed, stubbornness. Those are some signs of them shutting down. And then you, as their parent, put your need to correct them aside and make a real difference by wondering, what could you do to reduce the shame they may be feeling? It's not You stop that right now and apologize. Give me that and go to your room. It's more like when you first notice that they have a big feeling, you say, hey, it's hard for you right now, huh? It's okay to be upset. I'm here. What do you think we could do? Because you're a good kid and you're having a hard time. I would add here that if you lose your mind and your temper to being so reactive every time any little thing happens when they get upset, or when you intervene with your own solutions for them constantly, it doesn't teach them anything about themselves. It puts you as knowing better than them in all those situations, and that their feelings and their voice isn't to be heard and doesn't matter to you. Her next chapters are telling the truth and self care. Our truths help them become empowered. Understanding is the path to regulating them. So if they have more understanding, they can stay more emotionally regulated. Truth increases understanding, which increases regulation. So confirm their perceptions of their environment. And to know what they are, you got to ask. They usually are perceiving threat when they become upset. Most kids respond out of threat, most humans, in fact. It's typically a false threat, but we need to confirm it and name what's true. Be straightforward, name the facts of the event. Like, it's true that this can feel scary, but it's also true that it's not scary for some people. And when you connect to them and validate them in their scary feelings with a calm reassurance, you are focusing on how you are being and what you are saying. There's no perfect words as a parent to explain some of the imperfect situations that they run into or that happen, right? So if you remain with them calm, assured, present, and confident, and speak the truth about what's going on, it supports their need to be communicated to respectfully. Maybe place your hand on their back, use a soft tone. If your child shares a bad feeling or a bad story, respond with acknowledgement and validation and permission. Give them permission to feel how they feel and see it how they choose to see it without convincing them otherwise. If they have some hard questions for you to answer at the moment, you can tell them, I need to think about this and I'm going to get back to you because it's important for me to give you an answer the best way I can. The next chapter was self-care. And self-care, she says, is one of the main things that will greatly affect our relationships with our children. She wants us to reflect on, like, what would your kids say about you? Like, hey, my mom ran herself into the ground caring for us. Or my mom showed me by example how to take time for myself. And she took care of what she needed to while still being connected to us. Or my mom showed me that not losing yourself while parenting is possible. They do notice. They notice your depletion. They notice the resentment and things like how you spend your time and how you take care of yourself. They do absorb all of these things. I was thinking about this, and in my opinion, the best things my kids could say about me is mom could be adaptive and dynamic and also a mess. She was really good at getting back to being centered, and she was growing alongside us. That would be my ideal thing that if one of my kids said. And in my opinion, the best thing that Dr. Becky has said in this book is self-care is all about getting good at repairing our relationships. I thought that was the coolest thing because I call my stuff undo redo for a reason, and repair reinstills that connection. The connection that heals our families and helps us all feel confident, capable, more flexible, and cooperative. That happens when we're truly connected. We know as parents, we ask many things of them that they don't want to do, right? It's not time for that right now. Put that down, we gotta go. They're just happily playing. And we ask them to do so many things that they don't want to do in the middle of them enjoying themselves. And connection happens not during those times, right? They happen during the other calm times in life. So find a minute in the middle of a day, in the middle of some time where there's just a neutral feeling in the home, and have like a phone-free, distracted-free attention for them. This attention is where we feel the most loved because it's undivided attention from parent to child. And I swear by I tell all parents to have 5 to 10 minutes with each person in their family and you enter their world. And this is on purpose because most times it's the opposite. We demand they enter our world, our agenda. Remind yourself that you and them are both enough and you're both good inside. Improved behavior within the interactions will soon follow these important connective moments. These 5 or 10 minutes really do make a difference. You'll repair easily. You'll learn how to collaborate together better. You'll both take ownership of the reactions and emotions you've been having. And instead of you trying to fix them, that's not the goal. You are working on your own abilities to sit with them no matter what they show up like. They get to work on theirs with your lead when you work on yours. Now, that's up to about I don't know, we're halfway through the book. So I'm going to do the rest next week based on how long this episode is already. And so there will be Good Inside Part 2 next week. I look forward to talking to you then. Bye.